Welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. I'm your host, the whiteologist, Mr. Blows Your Minds, and this is Black Minds News. Black Minds News channel is to report, articulate, transmit, communicate, insinuate, investigate, whether it's by news, video, websites, or quotes from publications. As I articulate these information, I ask that the creator of the universe be here, heart, soul, mind, and spirit, because why? The truth don't need no partner. As a descendant of the greatest people who created this land that you call the United States, we, the BADOS, the Black American descendant of slaves, some say Black African descendant of slaves, others say ADOS, American descendant of slaves, we, the foundational blacks of this land, genealogy, historical lineage tied to those who created this land, we, the children and descendants, give honor to our ancestors. You know what my motto is? I'm never going to tell you what I heard. I'm only going to tell you what I know. Did y'all hear how they was talking about they found some tapes that really wasn't found, but through the archives of the Nixon Presidential Library, some tapes that had been recorded between the conversation between Richard Nixon and at that time the governor of California, later become president, Ronald Reagan. And in these conversations, some things that just seems where we are today in 2019. They say same old suit, just reheated. So some things don't change. It's always the same old thing, just a different day. Some people try to attribute it just as this to now, but maybe this is just the continuation of things that already have always been laid down. Now again, some people can take some things out of content, and some things can be just what they said and take it at face value. Here at Black Minds News, we're going to look at this article about the things that were said, and we are going to give a rendition of why we think the way kind of conversation went. So stay tuned as Black Minds News bring this broadcast. Hey, how's y'all doing? This again is Mr. Blows Your Minds coming with another Black Minds News report. Today's date is going to be August 6th, 2019. First and foremost, I want to say what's good to the fam, subscribers, old and new. What's good, y'all? Glad you could be over here, participant of the show. This is the way you give your contribution to help this show to get out of the most hated show in the black corner. I don't think that's going to ever happen, but at least get us out there to get some, people to be heard. Again, we're not in here about population. We just in here, again, relating news. Accordingly, some people don't want us talking about that. But again, welcome, family. Passerbys, if your GPS on your search engine somehow made you get over there seeing that thumbnail, and you should happen to click on it, and here you is, welcome to the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Go down the aisle. We always got a grand opening over here. Go down the aisle, see something you might like. If you should happen to see something that rub you in the wrong way, remember that the motto of the show is the truth don't need no partner. Now let's get into this. Now again, we do this because of the education that we learn from it. It's not a laughing matter, But again, we live under the hostility and the environment of the racial tension that once upon a time it seemed to be just a figment of our imagination. Until recently, we then had almost the full term of a president that everybody wants to attribute that the racial and the hatred is all attributed to this president here. And I like to say, on behalf, he is not the progenitor of that. This is something that has always been here, and history will kind of use the facts to what I'm saying. And then as we look at this position, this office, they came out in the archival. I'm pretty sure that if they went through all of them, I'm pretty sure we would not be surprised of what some of the conversation and the things that were said behind closed door. But because of what done been said recently, and people are trying to put the puzzle together to say, well, this one here is just doing the same as somebody who preceded him. He's just a predecessor of that one which led before him. And so some people kind of forget you kind of not had been here. Maybe you lackadaisical about your understanding about history. And so with this particular show here, what I'm going to do, first, I'm going to show you this. Right, I'm going ahead and cue it up. Hopefully everything is all good and good. So let's see here. Let's do this and let's be right back. Check this out. Now, due to the simple fact that I had to go ahead and redo this is because, again, the video, they say, can't be played. So you're not going to get the video. So in order for you to get the video, you're going to have to go see it on your own because they banned the video. Again, I'm the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. So if you want to see the video, then you're going to have to go see it on your own. So I'm going to go ahead and bypass the video. And I'm going to go directly to after I played the video. So here it goes. Really? They can say in 1971, that would have been absurd to hear. What? The 60s was just 10 years ago. Yeah, as a matter of fact, 60s was only 2 years ago from 71. What are you talking about? Right? See, that's the whole thing. See, you're trying to make these things so far back that, it's appalling to see that somebody in today in almost 2020 is talking like that. Wait a minute. Prior to that, you got hundreds of years. Aren't we coming on the so-called commemoration of 1619, which again, we know we've been here longer than that, but 1619 to 2019 is 400 years. And in that 400 years of history, other than the fact that you just had the president, a black president that ain't black American, but you got one out of the whole history. And again, no telling what he might have said too when they pulled the archives out on him eventually. As long as he's living, I guess he ain't gonna get that out. But anyway, so you want us to believe that all of a sudden there was a change of events out of what? What made the change? If we're gonna be honest, let's be honest about it. What made the change? Who made you change? Nothing. Other than the fact that, again, people went out there, civil rights and protests and tried to fight for the rights and so forth and get politically astute and started to put people in their position and little bit increments of stuff, trying to get stuff done. All right. So where's the drastic change yet? So again, stop playing the game. Again, this was the foundation of what was made. Why we got to pretend? It is what it is. This is why, some people would like to have the person who feels a certain way up in front of their face. That way you be like, all right, we know what it is. But when you're smiling in my face and then saying all kind of things, and then again, when you get in front of the camera, you want to be politically correct, that doesn't help you or I. That's because, again, you fall for the okie doke is what we say, right? So I'm just saying, come on now. We know that was not true. This was the foundation. Again, if granddaddy, great granddaddy, you understand? That means son and grandson. You understand? They say the apple don't far fall from the tree. Yes, there are different brands of apples. But again, whatever the seed, the bed of the fruit, it's going to be the same as the other one. Now, you can have some variations to the way how you look at it, but somewhere in the core, whatever the core is to what the reason why this is, it's going to always be passed down through the seed unless you become like these seedless fruits with no damn seeds. And you know what I'm saying? Somehow you birth with no seed. And then if you birth with no seed, then that means you artificial, and maybe you won't have the, lineage tied to what preceded before you. That would be the only way we have to look at it. So let me go ahead and get into what they said about this article. It's kind of crazy tricked out. So let's give it again. We're going to get a little background. The kid was Ronald Reagan again, that was 40th president of the United States. Again, he was president between 1981 and 1989, right? Now, prior before he became a president, he was a Hollywood actor. He was a Hollywood actor, right? Right? Mm-hmm. And then he was also the governor of California. Now, let's look at the time that he was the governor of California was during the time when they were talking about Black Panthers. Now, again, right? He was the governor during the time, right? And then if you have seen the movie Black Panther and so forth, they kind of got that little part in there where Reagan is in there and so forth. So based on what you're about to see here, put it all together, package it, then later on, I'll talk about some other stuff that, again, he was there during the Panthers, and then he's going to be, again, at another time for something else. But then, again, do we take this, the entirety of what was said, to make it is the whole ideology of the man, or is it just, this is just something that we, as BADOS, ADOS in this land, we know how it is. We not new to this. Not somebody who might just be migrating over here, new immigrants, a couple of generation 1 or 2. You can't see this. That's why it's hard to fool Black Americans, because we done seen it all. We've been here from the beginning. So you can't just tell us anything, even though they want to believe we're inferior and we're not too intellectual. We don't have geniuses. Anyway, moving on. So, he was from the state of Illinois. I think they went to Eureka College back in 1932. He was a screen actor, the Gills, right? I guess he had played the actor of a president twice. That's the case. Morgan Freeman should go on here and run too, right? Anyway, so again, he became in the Republican Party in 1964. Time for Choosing was a speech that he did. He had supported Barry Goldwater. Now, again, your history, know these people, then because also too, somebody who was a supporter of Barry Goldwater was also Hillary Clinton, right? And so, there's a little history again with him. So let's get into some of the stuff that was said between him and Nixon, right? So the article that did come out, put on anybody who might be interested in it. I'm not going to read the article. I'm just going to give you the rendition of what has been said. Now, it's called Ronald Reagan's Long Hidden Racist Conversations with Richard Nixon. Again, I'm going to say that again. Ronald Reagan's Long Hidden Racist Conversations with Richard Nixon. Again, this was published. Looks like this was published by, who was this published by? The Atlantic, right? And so what it's talking about is that, as you've seen in the video, it talked about the day after the United Nations had voted to recognize the people of the Republic of China, right? Now, again, remember, Reagan was the California governor at the time. And as you heard him say in the video, he was sitting there watching it on TV, and he became incensed is the word that they use. Now, again, for those, what I do once in a while, what I do is I go and I break down those words so that you will have a better understanding of the feeling that our 40th president was. So he was wrathful, wroth. He was irate. He was very angry. He was enraged. He was fuming. He was infuriated. He was furious. He was flaring up. He was red hot. He was white hot. White hot. He was distraught. He was overwrought. He was feverish. He was hysterical. He was not rational. He was violent. He was unrestrained. He was uncontrollable. He was ranting, raving, storming, foaming at the mouth, rabid, fanatical, frenzy. You get the idea, right? He was incensed with after he seen what he seen on there, because again they said, well, they wanted Taiwan in there, right? They wanted Taiwan in it, right? So based on they had the vote, and the vote had went the way that it went. And end up, they won. And, we still see it today. When Black folks get happy, sometimes I'm too. I'm a little, sometimes be like, hey, dancing. You ever, wait a minute, I got a matter of fact. You ever seen that commercial that come on? There's this brother in the kitchen with his daughter and he dancing. And there's a white woman that's like they doing a production and he's dancing. And she was like, you know, this is going to be seen by millions of people. He stopped, he's like, millions of people? Yeah. And then he just started getting into more, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness. Like this was the commercial. This is what you're going to be known for, right? And that's who he is. And some of y'all might know what I'm talking about. Some of you might be chuckling, laughing at it. But you seen that commercial, right? So anyway, sometimes we're a little indignant too when we see that. Be like, man, what's all this dancing shit about, right? But it is the case we say because, again, we understand how what was Reagan said is the way we know that they be thinking. Now, there ain't nothing wrong with us dancing when we happy. But we all know that anytime you do some things, it's always going to give the chuckle and laughter for them. It's cannon fodder for them to be laughing at you, right? So this is what Reagan had said to Richard Nixon. Matter of fact, he was so, again, as I said, incensed that he called out Richard Nixon. But Nixon was busy, you know what I'm saying? So he didn't answer. So he called the next day. And so what you see is Reagan, he vented his frustration about what he had seen last night. He said, again, you heard him say he watched the thing on the TV. Nixon was like, yeah, okay. And then Reagan was like, to see those monkeys from those African countries, damn them. They're still uncomfortable wearing shoes. And Nixon started to laugh and shit, right? See, again, is that racist? Right? Is that, you got some racist tendencies about how you feel about black people, right? Now, here's Africans in Africa, and you say, well, they ain't even you comfortable wearing with shoes. Are y'all saying y'all the original people with shoes? Wait a minute, I do remember a history about 7-11 to about 14. Now, some they talking about they clean mugs up, talking how wash them rice and all that stuff, right? Right? Did you wear shoes then? Were you speaking unga bunga? I mean, you get what I'm saying? I mean, are we selective in history is what we're going to say. Are we selective here? Maybe we're a little selective. All right. So whatever, right? So he vented and said, you know, those monkeys, right? Hey, still not even comfortable wearing those shoes. And it was kind of a tickle the fancy of Nixon. I say Nixon, but Nixon, right? So what we see that this kind of rhetoric is not something unusual. Over the history of those who've been presidents, right? A lot of them felt that whole way about they subscribe to the racist belief that Africans, or in other cases, the ones that are close in proximity to them, the African Americans, are somehow inferior. Now, wait a minute. If a people who you took, not per se you right now, but let's say historically, you brought to this land, again, we on the commemoration of the 1619 of 2019, and those people who you brought here, knowing the design and scheme and, you know, the way to break them down psychologically and make them just only be tools, how can you say inferior when they were only inbred like animals, because that's the way you treated our people, to be the way you wanted them to be? So wait a minute. So think about this. So you take a people who used to be somebody before they came and they knew you, brought them, stripped them of their language, who they were, right? Broke them down physically, mentally, spiritually, inculcated in them a belief system that you designed that was be beneficial for you. No education, right? And that went on for generations. Do you think that would be some kind of disadvantage to them because the start that they had? So to say inferior, is it natural or it was a cause and effect? You have to be honest with yourself. Was it a cause and effect? Maybe you don't want to admit that, but that's what it is, right? That's just what it is. And so, you know, to say that the African American is inferior is only because, again, he's in proximity who he learned from must be inferior because he learned what he learned from you. So if he's inferior, he has to be inferior because he learned from you. You understand? Now, his innate natural has always been kind of suppressed. He cannot really be himself. You understand? Because it's again, as you will hear in the conversation that Reagan and Nixon had, we'll see, right? So, so to put that these racist gibs, as they say, on Donald Trump, is just to say that the difference between those that of the past, we're going to have to go through the archives if they should happen to have any recordings and then reveal them. In the case of Donald Trump, it's in your face. He said right there, then and that, take it, leave it alone. Right? Like it and learn to like it, right? One of them type of things, right? So in this case, you ain't going to be able to go back to, well, those later on in history, when they look back, they'll be will say, oh, this kind of, but we who here now, we be like, I'm going to say that shit straight up in your face. You know what I'm saying? He did like, what's his name? I'm the president. What's that? You know what I'm talking about? I'm the president. That's what he is. I'm the president. I said the fuck I want to do. Nobody can't tell me shit. I'm the chief and commander in this motherfucker. I run all this, right? And that's how he play the game. All right, motherfucker like that tell you like a TI is. You respect that. All right, you know what it is. You know what your place is. You know what this place is. It's all good. It's that sneaky motherfucker you can't be trusting, right? So anyway, so we see that the exchange by tapes. Now again, it was Nixon who was recording, right? Nixon was recording all this, right? And so what we see is that the Nixon Presidential Library is the one who had archived all this. And it was directed by, I think back in like 2007 to 2011, that the National Archives would originally release the tapes of these conversations. Supposedly had been in 2000. But based on the racial portions, they want to hold up. They said, hold on, wait a minute, hold up. Wait a minute. We just going to release all this? Ain't we going to go through to hear what the fuck was said? So they was like, you're right. You right. Okay. Postpone that. It's going to take us almost 20 years to do this. So think about that. From 2000, and then it came out that they were going to review chronically, right? Chronologically is what they said, chronologically. And so they completed the whole task from 2000. It took them 13 years to go through all that to figure out what was said. The priority was, 10 being the worst shit you're going to ever hear, and 1 would be the shit we can release right now, right? So what you hearing here is kind of like the light shit. That's the shit you can hear, right? As those tapes come out more deeper, you're going to hear some other shit. But again, accordingly, they say, Ronald Reagan don't have no taste of his own presidency on himself, right? Now, everybody else may have some, but they say he ain't got none. Well, that might be telling something, right? That might be a telltale to something, right? So what we see is that since Ronald Reagan had died in 2004, right? So again, one reason why they didn't want to put it out is because they wanted to actually protect the privacy of Ronald Reagan at the time, but he died in 2004. So now it allowed for these tapes to be coming out. And so what you're seeing is researchers a year ago, it didn't just come out now, it was already had been in place. It did years ago, they already did it. So about 2 weeks ago, the National Archives released a complete version of the October 1971 conversation. And on that is including what you just seen there with Ronald Reagan involved, right? And so, again, the whole gist of that is the fact that, again, it was the UN that took the vote. And, again, it was to see the delegation from Beijing instead of Taiwan. And, again, this is 1971. And they said it was the members of the Tanzania delegation that started dancing in the General Assembly because why? Beijing got it. They was, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They was in there getting it in. They was in, you know what I'm saying? Doing the African dance, right? They was getting it in, right? And here's Lincoln sitting in his California home looking at this shit, and it pissed him off. Now, wait a minute, where's the tape to that when he seen that? Now again, we ain't gonna talk about what he talking about on the telephone. He was Nancy, what the, huh? Right? Nancy, huh? You know he was something, he probably was saying up in there, right? You know he probably was in there. So again, after he seen that, first thing he do, get up on the horn, call up Nixon, And he tell niggas, say, hey, he despised the United Nations, right? He said, man, this is a goddamn kangaroo court, huh? Filled with bums, huh? That's what he said. He said that it's a kangaroo court filled with bums. And he said that the United States should withdraw full participation immediately. Did you see it? He's indignant with all this, huh? But again, so here it was. Nixon go ahead and said that. Now here it is. Nixon gonna play politics. Now see, this is slickness with this is Richard Nixon, right? Right? Dick, right? Dick Nixon, right? And so what he did after he got off the phone with Reagan, he went and he called his advisor, security advisor, Al Haig. And Al Haig, he said that, all right, now, I know I'm supposed to be meeting some of these African leaders, right? Now, based on the shit that I just heard with Reagan, fuck that. I ain't fucking with none of them. You understand what I'm saying? And based on the shit that happened last night with the way they did with the shit with Taiwan, you know what I'm saying? If anybody I got scheduled with them, don't even submit to me the problem. It's difficult to turn on, right? He said, just tell them I'm out of town, right? I ain't fucking with none of them that supported that shit last night. I ain't fucking with none of them. Straight up, he just talk like a T.I. is, right? And so what we see is that Nixon's anger about what happened with the UN delegations from African nations, and, was it really just the Africans that did that on their own? See? But that's what they did. They wanted to put the blame slowly on the Africans voting. But they have to also remember that the maneuvering by the British and the French behind the scenes, because they the protectorates of a lot of them nations, right? Why you think there's the British part and the French part, right? Well, you got Africans who speak French and those who speak the British part, right? So they was involved in that. They was brand new. Most of them were just getting their independence of 65, 68, you know what I'm saying? So they weren't real privy to the game. It was still brand new, still smell like Similac on their breath. You get what I'm saying? And so that's what happened, right? So they try to put it on, but again, the indignant was the fact that it was Africans. The Africans was the blame. God damn, they could see them out there dancing and shit. Huh? Right? So what they did is they used the excuse that Reagan, this what Nixon did, according to what they saying. They said, well, Nixon used what Reagan had said to use the excuse to adapt his language, and now he finna talk to everybody. He gonna use the same shit Reagan said. He gonna tell everybody the same ass shit. He gonna say. So after he got the phone with Reagan, he got on the phone with his Secretary of State, William Rogers, right? And he gonna say, well, Reagan had called me and complained about Africans. And that was really the primary purpose of his call. And so, he said, as you can imagine, there's strong feelings that we shouldn't, as Reagan said, he saw these as, he sees these, right? He was trying to find the right words to say. Right? He was trying to be careful what he said because he wasn't sure how my man was going to take us. He said, these cannibals on TV last night. Yeah, that's it. Christ! They weren't even wearing shoes. And here the United States is going to submit to the fate to that. And so forth and so on. Right? So again, he's trying to, pro and proc him and be like, hey, you know what I'm talking about, right? You know what I'm really trying to say, right? Right? So what happens is that the president, he wanted the Patricia Secretary of State to understand that Reagan spoke for racist America. He was trying to say that this conversation I'm having with you, Reagan is speaking for this element in our country. And I think he's right. Because you won too. You understand? Like you won just like he won, but you're not sure if my man his won. You know what I'm saying? He might be one of them, he might be down the line and maybe he ain't for that, right? So he trying to see how are you down like that? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Like, you really said. And so my man was like, well, he said, that's right. He said, that's quite strong. Yeah. My man playing cool, like I ain't gonna show my hand. I'm letting you show your hand. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? Because even to this day, see, because the way he played it, you don't get to hear him on tape saying no, what they say, fuck shit, right? So, okay. So, you see that Nixon couldn't stop telling this story, retelling the story, right? in his version of what Reagan had said. Now, again, what he doing, you know, the old game he used to tell you when you're a kid, sit in the circle, whispering the other one ear, and originally what you said, by the time it come back to you, they done said some whole entire different story. Well, that's what Richard Nixon was doing. What Reagan said, again, he knew he was recording, right? So as long as he could say Reagan said it, it wasn't him saying it. It's what Reagan said. You get the game? He get to say what Reagan said, but not say and implicate himself. Well, you know what Reagan said? Blah, 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 blah. Reagan said. You get what I'm saying? So that's the game he was playing. Now, what you see is then again, after they had the conversation, 2 hours later, he goes back and again, he repeats the story again. Telling the same dude. He said, you know, now again, he done already told my man, but my man didn't confirm that he down like that. You understand? So 2 hours later, come back again. He said, Reagan called me last night. Didn't talk to him until this morning, but he's, of course, outraged. Found out what outraged him, you know, and I found this is typical of a lot of people. He saw it on television and said, these cannibals jumping up and down and all that. And apparently it was a pretty grotesque picture, you know. But Rogers, he agreed. Apparently it was a terrible scene. That's what he said. Now, see, the dude he talking to, he ain't falling for the okie doke. You ain't gonna get me up in that, my man. I think I already know. Everybody know you be recording this shit, so you ain't about to get me up on that shit. But again, apparently it was a terrible scene. Nixon, yeah, and then cheered, and they cheered, right? Right? He trying to get him to go there with him. So Nixon did. He says, well, you know, Reagan practically got sick at his stomach, right? And that's why he called. And I, you know what I'm saying? Now, they love Reagan. You know, man, he was he had been a Hollywood star and all this and stuff. And, you know, kind of, he was raising up. And again, he dealing with the Panthers and all that. So they kind of like Reagan, right? But Reagan, amongst the circles, they know what he is. You know what I'm saying? They know what he is. But see, he ain't sure my man is, right? He ain't sure my man is. And so what he says, it was a terrible scene, you know. He said, the sort of thing will have an emotional effect on people, right? I mean, white folks is going to be indignant. They just see the goddamn niggers out there, monkey, what the hell is going on in here, right? You should have left them, right? You can imagine being a fly on the wall in a lot of houses. After that night, they seen Africans going up because they couldn't the United States couldn't get what it wanted. So they was indignant as hell. So you could imagine all the conversation that was going through the United States at the time. And so he goes on and said that Reagan said, this bunch of people who don't even wear shoes yet to be kicking the United States in the teeth. It was a terrible thing, they thought. Huh? They see, anytime you win, it's a bad feeling for them. They feel like it's, you know what I'm saying? The world is going down because you won or you did something that was not in cahoots. And again, that's politics. You know, we just lumping pro-terrorists. We just regular people on the day. But again, we talking about the grand chessboard of things, right? So, you know, they say Nixon said he didn't think of himself as a racist, right? But he kept quoting Reagan's racism. Again, he knew he was recording him. He could get off of his ass. This was Reagan said. I didn't say it. Reagan said, right? So, you know, that was the way so he could get away from his own resentment of himself, right? And sentiments of himself, right? And so what we see is that Reagan comments about African leaders resonated with Nixon. And because it reflected the warped thinking about African Americans. Now, again, if you want to look badly at the Africans, and we, as descendants of that, our descendancy lineage come, and once upon a time from there, then you got to be looking at the African Americans, the Black Americans in this nation the same damn way, right? It ain't going to be no difference. The only difference is that these here, you know, ain't no jungle because we live here, but we live in places that you designate redline off, called ghettos and everything else, and hoods and everything else. So that is your kind of like your zoo. You know what I'm saying? You know how they take the animals from Africa and bring them and put them in the zoo in this artificial environment and shit. Well, that's the same way with Black Americans, right? You brought them into this artificial environment. You made a designated place that you call the zoo, and you say, look at them. See, look how they're living in there, right? Come with the TMZ bus and shit, drive them. Look at the animals, right? Safari and shit, right? And so, going on, So we see in the fall of 1971, we see that also the Nixon administration was dealing with a lot of massive welfare reform, right? They're facing like school busing, right? And so what Nixon was saying that in himself, according to what they write, is that Nixon wanted to examine more deeply how his own thinking on whether African Americans could make it in American society, right? So everybody was trying to make it out. The welfare was supporting up, propping up, kickstanding black folks. If you took all the welfare away, black folks would have fell apart, which is the biggest damn lie that's ever been told. How is it that the people, and we're saying 13% today, what were we then? Were we bigger? Were we smaller? I heard Malcolm say a lot of times in the stuff that he talked about, they were saying only 22 million people at that time in 64, 65, 60, you understand? So here we is 40 today, so how could all black people be on welfare? That is the biggest lie when you are the biggest population people, other than today is declining, but you've always been there. So if you took welfare, well, you was going to hurt some. Not all of us, but you going to hurt a lot of your own damn people. But y'all don't want to be honest about that, right? But again, these things, I want to make sure, this is what Nixon was saying. He was thinking about it. If we do these things with these, could African Americans really make it in American society if we start pulling away these things? Now, 3 weeks before he supposedly had this conversation with Nixon, he had revealed his opinion on African and African Americans in a conversation with a professor at Harvard named Daniel Patrick Moynihan, right? And Nixon said that he had served with Nixon in his administration at once upon a time, and he was attracted to the theories of Richard Herrnstein and Arthur Jensen, who linked IQ to race. Yeah, I heard that. Say, white people get indignant with you, get mad at you. Your IQ, you're uneducated. You know, they love saying that. Well, nigga, shit, I can't fall on them up. Yeah, what's your problem, right? What's your damn problem, right? So, so here it was. They, you know what IQ race is? They're trying to solidify what they think in their mind is going to be validated, right? So what happens, he go to Moynihan, he said, have you ever thought about that, Moynihan? And Moynihan was kind of reluctant. He was like, man, I said, now based at least on the evidence presently before me, that's what the Herrnstein said. What he said earlier by Jensen is probably very close to truth. What? Wait a minute. Based on at least the evidence presented before me, this Herrnstein and Jensen, who the ones who created it, unilateral argument, one-sided argument, who did they get to battle with to put out to present the facts, to whether say what you was presenting wasn't biased, racist in the way you equated it. So we don't go with that because they came up with it, but they might be just like, Nixon and Reagan and everybody else who might be like that, the same thing as we have seen in history about a lot of stuff, that a lot of that old stuff that a lot of people don't want to go back and look at. A lot of stuff is biased and racist in the way that it has been, given. And so what you see that Nixon explained to a quiet Moynihan, he was listening intently. He said, well, Nixon believed in hierarchy of races, right? He said whites and Asians much higher than people of African descent and Latinos. And somehow he convinced himself that it wasn't racist to think that black people as a group were inferior to whites. Now, again, this is 71. How old is he at this time? Going back, what was his daddy like? You understand? This has been a long historical, generational. How you looking at us? Not about what is, not again, when you dealing with some of us and you meet us and you deal with us, do you feel we inferior? Or do you have to make yourself believe that in order for yourself to feel, confident when you dealing with us, right? Do you have to make yourself feel away? Or is it natural that somebody, he's a bubble, he's a double fabber, abba? You know what I'm saying? That kind of shit, right? You don't hear a motherfucker talking like that. Not in these days. Because again, we have to be next to who you say you the greatest. Now, wait a minute. Think about this. Can somebody be next to somebody who's great? let's say in boxing, I done used this before. Most dudes that end up being the champion and the dudes that will sparring with them later down the line end up coming up and they will challenge them later on for the title because they used to fighting you. So you can, what they say, steel sharpens steel. So why is it that if we so inferior and we so this, but yet we next to what you say, the greatest, then what again, see? Again, think about that, right? Think about that. So what Nixon goes on, I keep getting Nixon, right? Nixon, right? So he goes on and says that, it wasn't racist to think that black people as a group were inferior to whites, so long as he held them in a paternalistic regard. I mean, as long as the white man is over the black man and keeping him subjected to the way that he sees and the way that he's going to organize everything, he's going to always be in that position, right? And that's the way it's going to be, right? You got to be in that position because, again, father knows best. Father's going to make sure that the kid will never, again, like some people say that baby boomers out there, everybody else. You won't get your ass out the goddamn way so that I can get you trying to be greedy, take all the goddamn shit. Get your ass out the way, right? You don't want me to get in position, right? No shot at baby boomers, but some people think like that, right? And so he goes on and he says that, within groups, there are geniuses, right? He said he is geniuses. He said, there are geniuses within black groups. There are, there's some geniuses, right? There are more within Asian groups. And this knowledge that is better not to know. Wait. I'm saying that again. Here he is, after saying that black people is inferior, comes right back and says, within groups, there are geniuses. There are geniuses within black groups. Wait a minute. So if there's geniuses within a group, then how do the math that you get all of them inferior? And how many in what you're saying as geniuses, again, they will always say a Michael Jordan and a LeBron and a Kobe are geniuses at basketball. Right? You could be geniuses at playing sport. You could be genius. Michael Jackson is a genius. Prince is a genius. But don't come to no thinking. Don't come to no building. As he said, this knowledge that is better not to know. We don't even want to know if they better at other shit. So what does that mean, yo? Somebody's been rigging the game. Somebody's been rigging. Let's say Three Little Bears. Somebody's been sleeping in my bed and they still in it. You understand? So Nixon, analysts of African leaders, reflected his prejudice towards African black citizens. What he said, right? He said, did you realize there's not 40 or 45? You're at the United Nations, black countries, they are represented there, right? Right? Yeah. I'm not saying that blacks cannot govern. I'm just saying that they have a hell of a time. They must demonstrate something. Now, wait a minute. See? There's 45 people in the United Nations that's representing nations, but none of them really ain't got there, according to what he said, they ain't really no leaders, right? Now, again, wait a minute. They just coming out of, most of them are just getting their independence. Why is it hard to connect the dots with some people? Why people cannot connect that these people had just from 1885 up into 1960, 61, 5 and others, right? 80 years plus, right? We're going to say 80 years, Africa had been subjugated by foreign occupation. A lot of it was brutal. A lot of mindsets were changed. They was infiltrated. Shit, didn't you see the story with white Jesus going up in Kenya and shit? People going crazy about it. We're going to do the story about it. I was like, I ain't going to fuck with that shit. Well, you know what I'm saying? And then document with the Jesus coming in. You know what the three M's are, right? First, come in with the merchants, come in with the missionaries, and then come in with the military. You know how they do it, right? So when you don't assess that and put that into the equation, look how you end up looking at shit. They can't govern this because why? It ain't like they've been governing from without any interference, without anybody subjugating them. But you won't put that into the equation. So to validate what you're saying, you won't acknowledge that. And so the way that you see them, that's the way you want to depict them. See? Ain't there something wrong in that? Or is that just, Mr. Blow Your Mind just saying, you're just saying some shit, right? So he said they have a hell of a time, right? He said this must demonstrate something. No, it just demonstrates that the people fighting to try to get out of position of somewhere they've been held down for a long period of time. And if you say them, what about we here in the United States, right? We encapsulated already, right? So it says that that he was saying now at this time when he's talking about this 71. Now 50 years from what he was talking about, that that he assumed that the non-white citizens of the United States were somehow inferior. 50 years from today, what would we put it at 50 years from today going back, right? He was thinking like that. And here we is today, we hear the same thing, rat and roach infested and all this other stuff, right? All this other stuff, right? And so he goes on and he goes to Monahan again. And he says, I got one more for you. Hold on. The nature of interest and research in African American intelligence, right? He said, we have a interest in the research of African American intelligence, but again, they're inferior. What you need to study are inferior people. This is what he says. The reason I have to know is that as I go for programs, that's what you're hiding behind. And the programs are going to try to create for, make some assessment of black people. But in one point, you're talking about they were geniuses, right? I must know that they have basic weaknesses. Wait a minute. You need to know their weaknesses so you can use that weaknesses and build programs on it to make it that's what it is. See? Rigged. But you can't be honest about the fact that you rigged the game, and then you make the people self-reflect on themselves and say, the reason why I can't do stuff is because I'm a failure. I did this, Not that the game been rigged. See, it's wrong to talk about the game is rigged. No, I'm talking about the game is rigged. Yet it came out in the tapes. This ain't me talking. This is what came out in the video. Yeah, I'll put the article right up in there for anybody who think I'm just making this up, you see. Okay, so as it goes on, it talks about, again, as these tapes make clear, that the 37th president of the United States, according to the article, was a racist. It's not me saying that's the article saying that, right? He believed in treating people according to their race. Race implied fundamental differences in individual human beings. Racism mattered to us because he allowed his views on race to shape U.S. policies. See? Pull yourself up by the bootstrap. Do like I do. But yet, the policies that had been formulated had to be created in a way that would shape the U.S. policies to make you inferior or at a disadvantage. And not just here, it was foreign and domestic. And that was the policies had to be seen through that lens. So, one last thing I'm going to say on that. Same individual that you're having the conversation with was there for the Panthers and was there for the crack. I'm going to say that again. The individual who was there to be governor of California through the Panthers was also the one that is, they say, is the sitting president when the crack comes in. Oh, so, coinky dink? Maybe. Maybe it's all just circumstance of somebody trying to get economics. Maybe it was never a way to just throw a damn bomb into those children of the Generation X who were coming after the children after the 60s. These were the children of the 60s. It wasn't a bomb trying to destroy them because, again, they felt like maybe there was something was going to happen with them. No. It so happened, just happened to happen, right? Maybe that's just what happened, right? But again, it's there, right? See, and that's what the revealing is doing today. The revealing is showing it all. There is no more. It is all in the reveal, and people now is going to make it what telling truth is going to be what? A crime. Not the fact that it's done and then it's legitimate. It's just the fact that this is what it is. Again, remember this stuff was hidden. We didn't have access to all this. Now that we do, and then we're starting to, again, sift through it. See, inferior people, that's what we inferior people do. They're trying to learn some shit because they don't know shit, right? If you're inferior, you don't know, lack of poor quality, education, environment, and so forth, you're always seeking to get something better. And so that's what's happening here, right? We're trying to seek to get something better, and as we sifting through all this shit, we're finding out a lot of shit. And now people getting upset and rubbing their damn feathers because, again, history is telling itself the truth don't need no damn partner. But it is what it is. Again, this is Black Minds News, bringing you this story here about what they said they found in the archives. So, I want to thank you for those who came over here and had your chance to listen to over here. Appreciate that you took your time out to come over here. And for your, participation to help patronize this channel, this is what I ask you for you. This is all I ask of you. So, commercial time. All right. And once again, I want to thank everybody for your participation in the show. Again, this is Black Minds News, most hated show on the black corner of the internet. And want to say we see one another, get a universal nod. Again, we all in this together. Right? There's no big I's and there's no little U's. We got too many chiefs and not enough Indians. In the case, we all just got to take it for what it is. Again, we're learning on the daily, and things are being exposed and revealed, and we take it as they come. We don't create nothing. We don't make anything up. The facts are right there before us. So again, anybody who should feel any kind of way, what you mad about? It is what it is, right? We didn't make it up. It's just what it is. So what we're going to say is I'm going out of here. Till my next show, y'all. Peace, love, and all that good stuff. Again, this is Black Minds News, the most hated show in the black corner of the internet. Peace, love, prosperity, longevity. Till the next show, y'all. Peace.